The only right is what is after my constitution. The only wrong, what comes against it. Ralph Waldo Emerson. What's up, guys? It's Friday the 13th, and I am hanging out here on the porch in recovery for a minute from a very, very busy week. And I wanted to talk for a minute about sovereignty and self-reliance because there is a lot of spiritual warfare going on right now. And I decided to sit out here on the porch and I started scrolling the Facebook, and it's never a good idea, right? But the political agendas right now are crazy, and people are really coping and moving through life like any way that they can right now. So I think that it's important to allow people not only grace, but their personal sovereignty. Okay, because it is always our own responsibility to know what is good for us and what is not, or what's going to help us and what is not. So, I was scrolling tonight and I came across a couple of posts about, being in recovery and going to recovery. And I made a post the other day about, and I was kind of just being an a-hole, but it was the truth that more people show up for NA than they do for like the school board meetings. But I really think that we have normalized drug use through the normalization of help, right? So there is a big medicalized agenda for recovery and extreme money cycles, okay? Kickbacks for putting people in rehab and definitely building employment structures around housing people and keeping people in line. And here's the thing. Unless the government is mandating your recovery or paying for your recovery, beyond that, anything that you do is a personal decision. Okay, unless you have completely stripped away your right to be sovereign, then anything that you do is on you. So I came across this post and it said recovery is not sobriety. Agreed, because you can be in recovery from a million things, and that doesn't mean you have to be sober. Recovery is about maybe rebuilding your life or turning around after you've gone down a bad road or healing from something traumatic or an injury. It's not just about sobriety. And life isn't about sobriety. Okay. We are allowed as humans to have a human experience. So if you are kicking a habit, say you're stopping cocaine or you've stopped doing heroin and you are finding solace in something else, maybe not alcohol because it hits the same receptors, okay, as heroin, and vice versa, right? You don't want to trade one of those for the other. But if you're like picking up a cigarette habit or a vaping habit, or you've turned to the cannabis plant, kudos to you, okay? Because you're making a decision to move in a better direction. No. Am I a fan of nicotine? No. Highly addictive, okay? Also, hits those same receptors as the alcohol and the heroin. So, we're coming back to cannabis being the safest alternative here, okay? Turns out, actually, psilocybin now and mescaline are safer, apparently, than cannabis, which is, interesting. But here we are. And we've known this, right? We've known this for a long time. We're using DMT and ketamine to treat depression and trauma. Well, what are depression and trauma? They're usually the precursors to heading down the road to addiction of alcohol, cocaine, heroin, right? So fun times that we're in. But I just want you to know that whatever you're doing right now that you're doing for you, as long as it's not infringing upon your employment or, your relationships, then do you. Okay. Don't let anybody tell you that you shouldn't be doing that, because every single person is here to have a human experience, and your path will be different from someone else's, and their path will be different from everyone else's. It's just how it works. It's individuality of the duality that we live in. Okay, so I see people all the time like, oh, you should go to a meeting, or oh, you should be doing this, or oh, you shouldn't be doing that. It's not up to you what other people do. And it doesn't matter how much you love them, and it doesn't matter how much you think that they should be sober. They're going to make their own decision anyway. And there is power in that, allowing people to make their own decisions, right? And there's freedom in it. We have to let people make their own decisions. At this point in the game, heroin, cocaine, just dangerous AF, okay? Which is why I'm really such a fan of the dispo. I really am, because if you get the right kind of products and the right bud tenders, the right people, you can walk into a dispensary and be like, these are my symptoms. This is what I'd like to see happen. Or, this is how my day was and I'd like to be mellow. Or I'm going hiking and I want something that's going to pump me up, because we can up and down regulate with cannabis, and that's a fun time. But it really is time to start moving in a more positive direction, because we need safe alternatives, and people are going to seek escape, especially as it gets more chaotic. Now, are there safer routes? Of course there are. There's always learning to breathe. There's always mental resilience. I've seen a lot of CBT, DBT groups. A lot of the feedback that I'm getting on that, especially locally, is that people aren't liking the group setting, because there might be one or two people in your group that you're not comfortable with, and then you're practicing these things with people, or you're putting yourself out there with people, and they're just not cool with that, which is interesting to me, because it's like the antithesis of AA and anywhere. You just sit in a group and everybody talks about themselves and their chaos, right? So I'm not really sure what to do with that yet. I've been milling that over for like a week, actually. I thought that was an interesting thing that was said to me. So, just allow people, guys. Everybody's doing the best that they can right now. Allow them to do what they need to do. Maybe California sober isn't sober to you. That's okay, right? And I agree wholeheartedly that harm reduction isn't sobriety, because it's really not, and if it was, we wouldn't have people 20, 30 years in a methadone clinic, because we're just sustaining the addiction, right? We wouldn't be using the naltrexone for years to combat alcoholism. But the truth is that there may come a point where people cannot kick the habit, and they don't want to. And there is a lot of mental resilience tied into that. And we don't teach that. And I see it every day in these young kids. I see it every day. We're not teaching them how to be mentally strong. We're not teaching them how to understand what's good for them and what's not. They're just crowd following and making crazy decisions. And they don't have any idea how much power they actually hold. I think for 100 years we've handed them the wrong information about psychedelics, and it's been detrimental to everything. It was detrimental to the earth when we villainized hemp and we stopped making things like paper and clothing, and we turned to plastic to make everything, right? Everything. We decimated the forest, we cut down all the trees. It was the wrong direction. You want to talk about recovery? We need to do a 180, friends. It needs to happen because we flooded the oceans with plastic. Our kids are, I don't want to say they're weak, but honestly, we're building out a weak generation. And if you look at public education, it's been systemic since at least the 70s, just the dumbing down. If you're a teacher that came in after like 1996 with the No Child Left Behind, I know that's a hard one for you guys, and I don't mean to put you down because you show up every day for these kids, okay? Every day, and thank you for that. But there has been a big shift since No Child Left Behind, and there was another one when they rolled out Common Core. There has been big shifts, especially in language and communication. And now we're looking at all of this control coming down through government systems and surveillance, and you have to understand that that's all part of a greater agenda. It's all been part of a greater agenda. We have to start taking back our power. All of us, every single one of us has to understand what is good for me, what is not good for me, and how do we identify those things. And there's lots of ways to know. You know, how do you feel? How do you feel when you're around certain people? How do you feel when you do this? How do you feel when you're drinking? And I experienced this the other night. I'm a whiskey girl. Unless it's a dry gin martini with a twist. Neat. Okay. But I went to the grocery store and I came home with this bottle of ginger ale. And I knew that I had like a half a bottle of Jack Daniels in the cupboard. And I thought, man, that sounds delicious right now. But I don't always like the way the alcohol makes me feel. We know that it lowers your vibration. And I had been feeling pretty good. And I said, I'm not going to do that. And that was a sovereign decision that I made. Because did this sound amazing in the moment? Yeah. Did I think the next morning it was going to be helpful? No. Okay. So, and I will say that, I'm 42 years old. I'm old enough to know what's going to help me and what's going to not. Okay. And it takes time to learn those things, which is why we have to be teaching it at a young age. We have to, because we don't want our kids to learn by trial and error. One of the hardest things that I've seen working with people in addiction recovery is that when I was a kid, I would hear parents say, you can be anything you want when you grow up. Never in a million years did I think that drug addict or alcoholic was included in that list of things that you could be. But lately, I don't believe that. I don't always think that parents want their kids to do better than them. And I don't think that a lot of parents understand the shit that we pass down to our kids. I've had 15-year-old girls, 18-year-old boys tell me that it was their dad or their mom that was the first person to push a plunger in their arm. Like, I don't understand. Generational trauma and these cycles are so enmeshed in our society. And I don't understand it. And I certainly don't understand how we're just missing it in education and we're not handing out that power. Instead, we're really teaching cower and capitulate and follow the rules. What rules, man? The rules are arbitrary, okay? If man made the rules, we can change the rules. It's time, guys. But either way, you gotta let people be. We're all here to have an experience. It's all sovereign decisions. So if you're kicking a habit, congratulations. If you're trading it in for a lesser evil, you're still making progress, and don't forget that. Alright, I love you guys. I'll talk to you later.